We are looking at John's backstroke underwater, commentary by Coach Chris. We're going to let it play through once, full speed. First thing that stands out is I really like John's body line. Very, very solid, very, very nice alignment, very still head. Head's back. You can see the two letters of his cap, C or S, or the P or S and P, depending which way he's going. But you can see the CS right here. That's as far back as I like to see. Water line right at the top of his head. That's exactly what we teach. That's exactly what we want to see. Pull is really solid as far as direction. He's pulling the right direction. Watch this bubbles. When you watch these bubbles, this is the water he's moving. This is where he's propelling himself. And you can see these bubbles here are coming this way. I mean, that is perfect. That's like the tail of the rocket. He's going that way with that pull. So that's good. He's getting a good amount of power from his hands. The one thing he does, which is pretty common for kids his age, and we'll frame to the next one. Okay, he's a little bit of a rush to pull. He doesn't get the shoulder down deep enough. And you can see when his hands get in, he's already pulling back. He needs to let that hand get deeper. You know, his hand gets to here, and then he starts pulling. We really want his hand to get to about this depth. Let it carry down deeper before he starts pulling. And what the kids tend to not understand, and this is a good frame here, what they tend not to understand with this hand depth and the roll of the shoulder, getting him more on your side, is it sets him up to have a nice deep bend in his elbow. Right now he's got a slight one. That's about as bent as his elbow will get. We'd like to see his hand get a lot deeper. Let's change that. We want to see his elbow get a lot deeper so we get this bend in his elbow. That's more what we're looking for. And really, what happens is a lot of the kids, when they get to this phase of their arm, okay, his hand gets in, it's carrying down a little bit. Your hand only gets to the depth of your shoulder. So he's got to get a little bit more of a roll, and that'll get that hand a little bit deeper. Get it to about here, and that'll let that hand get to about here. And then he can kind of pull through and up with that little tail and finish down that most kids have, and even a lot of the Olympians have. But really what happens is in freestyle, and what happens in butterfly, what happens in all the strokes, particularly back and free, is the kids think of their recovery phase as ending as soon as the hand gets wet. Once the hand's in the water, they think it's time to pull, like recovery phase is over. But that's not true. There's a certain spot at a certain depth that we want the hand to get to before we even think about pulling. And generally that's underneath the body. And so for backstroke, you want that hand to come down and in through the surface and get to that depth. Add a little splash here. So the hand's got to get through the surface, the arm's got to get down to the right depth before that pull phase begins. And so a little more patience on the front end. Roll onto your side more, let that hand carry down a little bit deeper, probably about 3 inches deeper before you start pulling the water. Give it some time to grab. Again, direction of the pull is great. You can see by those bubbles, I mean, that's right on what we want. Really nice high hips, nice head position, nice body line, solid. And here comes the turn. John is working hard on his turns. We just got to keep working on getting comfortable. As you can see, he flips solid, then he kind of lands in the wrong spot. He's basically uncoiling his body too soon. He needs to stay balled up. His goal is to land in the chair position. So it would be like you're sitting in a chair, legs at 90. Both legs should be pretty much, you know, just a little bit apart. We're going to draw this. You know, here's his upper body. That's more the position he wants to be in. You know, head back. That's more the position he wants to be in. And right now you can see the difference. His heels are very, very low in the water. and he's landing on his toes, not on his actual feet. He needs to land on the entire foot. And he wants his feet to land high in the water, towards the top of the wall, in this band above the cross. He wants to land there so that he can flatten out. So by landing in this awkward position, his body isn't quite lined up to go any direction, but really, really deep. He's going to drive and gets really, really deep. And then he starts kicking too soon, and he's kicking down. So the first kick, or two kicks, are on the way down, pushing him even deeper. Well, now, if he's gone 2 kicks down, from this depth, he's probably got about 6 to 8 kicks to get to the surface. You can see his hands coming apart. He'll take one more kick, and then he's going to try and break out. So what John has to be more aware of is where he's at in depth in the water, and he's got to get a better understanding for the kicks. In order to do a proper kick out, you've got to do more kicks on the way up than you do on the way down. For this angle, as deep as he gets, he's got 1 kick down that pushes him deeper. From this angle and where he's at and the size of his kicks, he's probably going to take about 8 kicks at minimum to get to the surface. He's going to bail out after 2. 1, 2. And now he's breaking out. We are still so deep that the surface it's not even in frame. Now the problem is he's just blind. It's like he pushes off and he's not paying any attention to where he's at. He should have his eyes on the surface. And he should be looking at the surface and seeing the surface. Like, it's right there. You know if you're there or not. You shouldn't break your streamline until your face is going through the surface. And you should have your eyes on it. You can see it approach you. Like, you need to keep your eyes on it. Because right now, I don't know if he's got his eyes closed or what's going on, but he's not aware at all of where the surface is at, and he's looking right up at it. So we got to pay attention to where the surface is. On backstroke, we get to see it. So the timing should be better on these breakouts. As we talked about the overwater, he's also doing an improper breakout. I mean, not only is he way deep, but he's doing this double arm pull. This is actually a DQ. Not because of the double arm pull, but because he's pulling submerged. This is like a pull out on a breaststroke. So that's a big issue. Needs to make sure he's transitioning to the surface. Needs to make sure that he's keeping an eye on the surface and kicking up to it and not trying to pull until he hits the surface. And then when he does initiate that pull, it's one arm. Pick one. Okay, let's say this right arm is going to pull. This left arm should stay in streamline. Left arm stays up. Right arm pulls back. Pick one or the other, but you lead the stroke on the breakout with one arm pull. Pick the left or right. One arm pulls down to your side, and then you should start swimming. So really, I mean, the swim part is solid. A little bit of a tweak of the pull would really, really help. Let the hand get a little deeper before we start initiating that pull. A little more patience. But a lot of the things he can fix are in and around those turns. You know, just has to get a lot more comfortable on flipping and landing in that chair position, that feet high on the wall, 90-degree bend on the knee, 90-degree bend on the waist, looking straight up at the ceiling or at the surface of the water. And then once he pushes off into that streamline, he just has to make sure that he's in the right path. You know, glide down, kick on the way up, keep an eye on the surface. Don't take your eye off the surface. Don't close your eyes. Don't start your pull, your breakout stroke until you're hitting the surface, and keep kicking till you get to the surface to take that stroke. Be aware where you're at and make sure that when you take that breakout stroke on backstroke that it's one arm, not two arms. Very, very important. And make sure that you're not doing those strokes underwater. So a lot of stuff to clean up around the wall. That's good. That's room for improvement. A lot of room for improvement, which a lot of it's small tweaks. We can make these changes in a relatively short amount of time. It just involves a little more awareness, and we we will and do practice the turns, so he'll get lots of opportunities to focus on these things. We do stress them, so I'm expecting to see a lot of improvement in that area as we move along the season. But a lot of strong fundamentals. So he just needs to keep building on the skill set he has and then tweaking those issues that he has and clean up those walls. And we should see some pretty solid drops.